Welcome, everybody, to the Sam Acho podcast featuring Clif Marshall. And as we usually do, Clif, we have a very special guest, and I'd love for you to introduce to the world our guest.
I'm so fired up today, guys. We have Thaddeus Bullard on the show. Thaddeus is an American professional wrestler. He is described by the WWE as one of the most philanthropic superstars in WWE history. He was actually the recipient of the WWE Hall of Fame Award in 2021. Thaddeus played college football for the University of Florida and thereafter in the Arena Football League. And that led him to a career again in the wrestling world. He went under the ring name as Titus O'Neil. He is a former WWE Tag Team Champion as part of the Primetime Players. He is a father. He currently resides in Tampa, Florida, and he is devout in his faith. And we are super, super fired up to talk to Thaddeus today.
And he's got a new show coming out. We're gonna get into the new show. We got a new show coming out, which it's gonna be on NBC and on Peacock. It's called King's Court, and I don't want to get too deep into it first, Thaddeus. I want to talk about how we connected initially. So I think it was maybe 3-4 months ago, out in National Championship, I believe it was, and I'm in the hotel lobby. I see this dapper-looking young fellow, muscles sticking out everywhere, and I recognize him. And for me, Thaddeus, it wasn't necessarily from your wrestling career, but it's from your impact, I would say, not just in the community, but also when it comes to social media, et cetera. I just seen a podcast you had done with a colleague of mine, Ryan Clark, and you went deep. And I was like, man, there's something about this man as a human, as an individual. And we connected, talked about some of your philanthropy and some of your work and family. And that's kind of how the podcast conversation came about. But what do you remember about that initial kind of interaction?
Yeah, we were one of only very few big black men in the lobby at the time. And so I was like, but I've always been a huge fan of your work, and just wanted to come up and say that. And that's exactly what I said to you. Hey, man, I'm a huge fan of your work and this and that. And he was like, thank you so much, man. And we just literally started talking like we were brothers from another mother, and exchanging pleasantries, talking about family, talking about faith. I just want to be a good human being. You know, I don't want, if I'm wealthy, great. You know, if I have nice cars, nice clothes, but if I have all of that and I'm a horrible human being, I don't want it, you know? And meeting this guy at 13 years old and being able to literally take him to church with one of my teammates, who at that time, his family owned one of the largest mobile home manufacturers in the Southeast. They got him a job. He ended up running the place by 4 years later, got reconnected with his ex-wife, not to get married, but he hadn't been around him, because one day, a couple of weeks after I met him and talked to him, you know, I asked him, you know, how did you end up in this place, if you don't mind me asking? And he said, you know, if I told you that I was a CEO of a company, I had nice cars, a beautiful home, beautiful wife, beautiful daughters, would you believe me? And I said, if that's what you say, you know, it's what I have to believe. He said, that's exactly what my life used to be. Drugs, alcohol, and gambling took me away from my family. And to know at that age how I responded to him, you know, when he told me that God's going to use you, not realizing that, you know, I'm going to go to a Catholic church, and because I had to, you know, ask of my teammate who had been asking me all year. And I went. I love all religion because I think we can learn from everything. It just didn't move me at all. It was a bunch of standing up, sitting down, humming, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. And I had no idea what was going on. And I walked out of there like, you know, in church, most of the time, at the minimum, I get the music, and the music made me feel good, you know? Sometimes I wasn't getting the message, but this was a time where I didn't understand none of it, you know? But what I saw this man experience as a kid, watching this man just be happy to be in a house of God at all, really put in perspective what he was saying to me in regards to like how God is going to use me. And I'm unapologetic about it. to this day. Like I cuss, I fuss, I blow the houses down. But I know that God chose 12 people in the Bible that were the most probably the most unqualified folks in the world and made them disciples, and some of the best work in the Bible or people in the Bible were from some of the most quote unquote unqualified by society. And so, I get to live with a freedom, and a freedom that says, regardless of what people think of me, I know who I am, and I know that there are way more people that know who I am instead of knowing what I do for a living. When I was playing football, that's what I did for a living. I would constantly tell folks when they go, "Oh, you're a football player at such and such." No, that's what I do for a living. It's not who I am for a living. Oh, you're a wrestler. You're that pro wrestler. And oh, yes, what I do for a living. That's not who I am for a living. Let me tell you who I am for a living. And I didn't grow up with the example that a lot of people grow up with the positive dad in the home and, being, the superstar athlete in high school. And I didn't become all that until later in my high school career. I was the number 1 recruit coming out of high school. I could have chose anywhere. And obviously, I chose the best school at the University of Florida. And, won a national championship there, graduated from there, 2 SEC championships. I'm in the University of Florida Hall of Fame. I was the vice president of student government, and which is why I hate politics to this day. A lot of the people that helped me get elected into office are now serving as senators and congressmen and women. And I have my hats off to them if they can, navigate those spaces. But I'm a person that firmly believes that God put me on this earth to connect people and to impact folks in ways in which traditional people cannot do. And I think all of us have that innate ability to do that because we're all called, but few are chosen.
All right, Thaddeus, I heard a lot in what you just said about faith, about family, about football, about finances, about philanthropy. But I have a question about circling back to the family piece. Before we started the call, we talked about you being a father and, you have the show coming out, King's Court, about being a bachelor and all these things. But you talked about, man, I have 2 sons from a previous marriage, but an adopted daughter. Tell me about your daughter.
My daughter, Leah, she's amazing. I've actually known her since she was 7 years old. Her mother has been a longtime friend of mine, and she had some health complications, not to get too far into what it was, but it was a chance that she may or may not make it. And she was just hoping that I would just check in on Leah, in the event that something unfortunate happened. And I said, well, what if I adopted her? And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I've always wanted a daughter, and I'm not physically having any more kids. Vasectomy 2012 is my alternate Bible verse. And, and I say, well, let me talk to my sons about it first and see what they say. And, but I knew they would be fine with it because about 3 years prior to that, I had met 2 7-year-old twin girls, Saya and Sky. And I met them at the youth ranch, and I was like, like they were hanging all over me, and I just fell in love with them. And I said, I went to the counselor and I said, I would love to see about like seeing if I can be around these kids more and this and that. And, I hadn't thought about adoption, but I was definitely thinking about adoption at that point. And so I started the process of seeing how I could become their father. And probably 2 months into the process, the social worker came to me and she said, I think this is very admirable of what you're doing. There's no question these kids will come to a great home. You're a great man, yada, yada, yada. But I need to tell you this, you could take these young ladies and you can put them in the best of situation. And, 2 or 3 years down the road, the mom or the dad can come and say, hey, I'm ready to be a parent now. And you would have to, pretty much relinquish the rights back over to the parent because they're in the foster care system. And I stopped the process because I just didn't want to, I couldn't imagine pouring all that time and stuff into these two young ladies and giving them the opportunity to pour their love into me, only to have their life shifted again. They were already in the foster care system. And so they kind of been at one place to another place to a relative here or whatever. And I just didn't want to continue. I wanted to be the one that broke that cycle and gave them some stability and gave them some normalcy. I knew that I was going to have a lot of trauma and mental health and things like that I would have to help them navigate through, but I was willing to do that. And so cutting that process off, clearly God had knew it was on my heart that I wanted to have a daughter. And the opportunity came up to get Leah. And, once I talked with my sons and it was an absolute yes, they knew her already. Jokingly talking about, as long as she notices a competitive family and all this stuff, it was all good. And so I end up, FaceTiming her and Carrie, and Leah said, "Why are you doing this for me?" And I said, "Well, I've always wanted a daughter, and if I had a daughter, you'd be everything that I would want in a daughter or a son." And she was like, "Well, I'm gay, right?" And I paused and I said, "Leah, I don't give a damn if you purple with streamers flying out of your ass. Like, I'm not here to make you be a certain way. I'm here to help you be the best version of yourself. And I want you to be a good human being. And as long as you're a great human being, you're more than welcome to be anything and everything you desire to be. But part of being a great human being is also understanding that may be your sexual orientation and your choice. But as long as you don't try to push that motive, much like I don't want anybody to push Christianity on anyone. I don't want anybody to push politics on anyone. I want people to be their ultimate best selves. And because diversity is important to me, and not only diversity in skin color and religion and politics, but diversity in thought, because we have a lot of one-track thinkers when it comes to a lot of things. When in business, you have a lot of guys that just look at the bottom line, and they completely take out the human element of that bottom line. People do get sick. People do have life issues. People do have deaths in the family. And when you're looking at people's performance and you're rating their performance based on just the number and not equating all those other things, you're taking out the human element that got you to the position that you're in to even have a business. And it's the same way I feel about teams. Everybody says, if you were a coach, do you coach every player the same? No, I don't. Do you treat every player the same? Absolutely not, because every player doesn't come from the same background. But every standard is the same. You will be on time. Basic stuff. You will be on time. You will respect the game. You will respect one another. And my daughter and my kids understand that. We have 3 rules in our house. The first rule is love and respect everybody you come in contact with. You're not going to like all of them, and you're not going to agree with all of them, but you love them and you respect them. Rule number 2, don't use the word can't. I was told my entire life what I can't do, what I won't do, how I'll never be. And it was all proven to be a lie. And then from a biblical sense, the Bible says that we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And so I can't tell people that I believe in Christ and then tell them what can't be done. It's just a complete oxymoron to what I believe. And rule number 3, be your best. Some days 70% is your best, 30% is your best. But as long as you're doing your best, you or anybody else can never be disappointed. It's when you didn't study for that test or you didn't prepare for that presentation as much as you should have and you lost out on that deal or whatever it may be. That's when you should be disappointed. That's when you're going to be disappointed because you didn't do your best. And my daughter has given me so much introspective, even though she's, gay, she's still a woman, and that's a different, women are different, you know what I mean? Women are different, so, as much as of a jock she is, she's still very much so feminine and very much so sensitive when it comes to certain things. And, I've had to check myself on a lot of occasions because I'm like, talking to her like I would talk to my sons. So my daughter has definitely been an amazing experience of fatherhood, but she's been an amazing addition to our family. She just signed. She went into the transfer portal. She was at Oakland University in Rochester, Michigan, and now she's going to be at UMass. And so, great opportunity for her there. She got a little NIL money coming too. So
Okay.
get out of daddy's pockets,
Yeah.
get out of dad's pockets and do your own thing. But yeah, and then my oldest son plays at UCF, plays football at UCF, and then my youngest son, plays football at Florida. So I'm a very happy and proud empty nester. And so obviously this show coming out, Queen's Court, which will be debuting on July 13th on Bravo, and also streaming on Peacock. It's myself, Tyson Beckford, and Carlos Boozer, hosted by Holly Robinson P. and Rodney P., two of Hollywood's royalty when it comes to married couples, kind of steering us through this journey. And so it's a great, I think it's going to be a fun experience for people and a fun journey for people to go along with us on, as we try to discover if and who will be our queen.
Okay. I know Cliff got a question. Can you give us some insight? Did you find a queen? What can you share with us about the show?
All I can say, it was a great journey, and I think the outcome of the show will really be indicative of just the journey we're all on, and discovering who we are as men at this point. Carlos, formerly divorced as well, and his two sons are top basketball players in the country. And they're going to Duke, and tried to get them to come to Florida. They were very close to coming to Florida, but obviously they had to follow in Pop's footsteps and go to Duke, which is awesome, an amazing opportunity for them. And then obviously Tyson's been a fashion icon for years. Been around the world and has dated a person or two. So we're very excited about what is to come on the show and what people will be able to see from that standpoint and vantage point for us.
Thaddeus, I'm again so fired up you're on the show today. And I told Sam before we got on the podcast with you, I said, man, I'm a little nervous. I've never really spoke to a WWE superstar. And I grew up in the 80s. I grew up watching the WWE with Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, Randy Savage. And I followed it all the way up until where it's at today. As a matter of fact, in the spring of this year, I was blessed to go down to the Royal Rumble. It was in Indianapolis. Yeah. And I had a connection where I was able to get ringside. And my goodness, man, I just have a new respect for the athletes of WWE. So I really just wanted to talk to you about your journey from college football to the Arena Football League and then into wrestling. Like, did somebody scout you, or how did you get involved in wrestling?
No, my best friend is one of my best friends is Dave Bautista. Who was also in wrestling at the time, and kind of encouraged me to try out for it. And I was like, man, I'm not doing that. I want to go coach, And in 2009, I was driving by FCW, which is our developmental league, which is now called NXT. And I wanted some jerk chicken, which is a place in Tampa called the Jerk Hut. So I was going to get jerk chicken. I saw the building on the right-hand side that he had been telling me about. I picked up the phone. I said, Dave, is this the place you've been telling me about? He said, yeah. I said, I'm going to poke my head in the back door and see what it's about, And he said, yeah, ask for Dusty Rhodes or Steve Keirn. And I said, Dusty Rhodes, like Atomic Elbow Dusty Rhodes? And he was like, a bionic elbow Dusty Rhodes? He's like, yes. He's like, he helps the talent with developing their promos and stuff like that. And so I poked my head in the back door, and lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I was signed and learning how to become a WWE superstar. And the rest is history. That happened in 2009, and 2020, I was put into the WWE Hall of Fame as a Warrior Award recipient. So it's definitely, again, one of those things where if people would have told me, and that's why even now, if people ask me the question, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? I can honestly say 5 years ago, I couldn't tell you where I was going to be. You know, I wouldn't have told you that I'm getting ready to be on a, unscripted reality TV series on Bravo, of all places. Um, I wouldn't have told you that I was going to be in the WWE when I was in college. I wouldn't have told you any. I mean, I speared people into the pool during my pool parties, but that was just me, being a fan and being crazy. Uh, but yeah, I tell folks all the time, and when they ask me, what do you see yourself in 5 years? Right now, 5 years, 10 years, I see wherever God has for me to go. That's where I'm going to go, and I haven't controlled my destiny up to this point. I didn't control how I came into this world. The only thing I can control is my attitude and my gratitude, and displaying both of them in a positive way each and every day. I will never be able to repay the folks that poured into the Florida Shares Boys Ranch. I don't even know a lot of them. I don't know the people that wrote checks for the Boys and Girls Club. I just remember the moments at 12 years old when I was given an opportunity to stay, even though everybody wanted me to go. I remember at 12 years old, before I went to the Boys Ranch, a white lady from Boynton Beach, Florida, came up and gave me a really nice remote control car for Christmas and said, "I want you to have this. I bought this for you because I wanted you to have a really nice gift." And that was the only thing that I got for Christmas. And I kept that car into my junior year in college. And I would still have that car to this day if my college roommate, Daryl Owens, who also played football with me at Florida, he didn't come home and wanted to wrestle at 2 o'clock in the morning after drinking, having a good night out on the town. And he broke our fish tank and my car. Well, I didn't really care much about the fish tank. That could be replaced, but I'd probably beat his ass for 3 days straight. About that remote control car. And to him, man, it's just a car. I'll get you another car. But to me, it wasn't just a car. It was the first time somebody treated me with dignity. When they gave me a gift. We do a lot of very transactional stuff in this world. Christmas comes around, everybody's giving, and they'll put some gifts in a plastic bag and hand them, and they'll feel good about themselves. But those people that are getting that nice car or whatever, they might not have money to get the batteries, or you're giving them food boxes during Thanksgiving, but they might not even have a home to warm that food up in, or to cook that food, prepare that food. So while we're all very giving, by nature, hurricane hits, national disaster hits, mass shooting hits, everybody feels like they want to do something. In my opinion, transactional things didn't get me to where I'm at. Transformational things did. And I'm a transformational thinker when it comes to how I give. If I can't do something that's sustainable, I won't do it. When I invested my time, my talent, and my resources into turning one of the lowest performing schools in the entire school district, and literally telling the school district, let me do what I need to do and don't mess with us, don't screw with us. Like, I will help turn this school into a positive beacon for this community. And 4 years later, it's one of the best schools, and it's definitely the best looking campus. We've completely transformed it. It's the only middle school with a whole bunch of stuff. I got a street hockey rink there in the middle of the hood, so brothers and sisters are playing hockey. Uh, we have a turf field. We're the only school in the school, the only middle school in the entire school district that's public that has a turf field. We got an academy wing. We got robots. We got all kinds of stuff. And so, because I truly believe that exposure leads to expansion. And when you expose people wherever they are from, it expands their mind, it expands their thought process, and expands their ability to think outside of their own surroundings. Um, and so, when it comes to being in the WWE, having the platform that I've had in the WWE, and even now to this day, I still have very close connections with a lot of people on the roster, but also former WWE talent. It's not because I was world champ 25 times, and it's not because I was tag team champion 3,500 times or whatever. It's because I was a great human being in that space, and I continue to be the same dude that I was walking in the doors. It didn't matter how much success I had or didn't have. It was really all about, me being grateful for the opportunity. And I think that if people looked at that holistically across the board, whether it's, dealing with your own kids, like, man, these damn kids, they getting on my nerves. Well, guess what? There's some people that don't have kids to get on their nerves, and they wish they could have kids, but they can't. It's some people that had kids that were getting on their nerves and they lost them to cancer. It's some kids that were getting on their nerves and, and they started finally turning the corner and getting things right. And then boom, life happens, accident, shooting, whatever. So I think, for me, being in the WWE gave me a better perspective even of what being American is, especially an African American. Folks always, I ask the question all the time, do you feel like America's the greatest country in the world? And you'll get some people to raise their hand proudly. Yes, absolutely. And for me, it's not. Like, as a black man in America, like, my history in this country is not good and still not good. It doesn't mean I can't be successful and I haven't been successful. But when I go to China, who people talk crap about here, or when I go to Japan and it's clean and people are respectful and there's no obese people over there, like, you got to wonder, like, how can we say we're the greatest country in the world? We lead the world in mass shootings. We lead the world in incarcerations, mass incarcerations. We lead the world in a whole lot of things that are not good. And I always say the only time we're ever collectively in this country good, really good, and united is in times of tragedy. And even that is fleeting. Hurricane hits, you see the best and best of people. And then 2 weeks later, they're back to being the divided country that we are. And so I always tell people come to this country not because it's the greatest country in the world. They come to this country because it's the country with the greatest amount of opportunity. People can come here and get an education that they wouldn't be able to get in their respective country. They'd be able to come here and start a business. It is truly the land of opportunity. But even with having that opportunity, there's still people completely negate the fact about the struggles that go along with that opportunity. And depending on how you look, where you come from, what language barrier you have or you don't have, what's your sexual orientation, what the color of your skin is, or what your political affiliation is, there is real life situations where systemic issues will affect you. And so I don't get too caught up in being a proud American. I get more caught up in being a great human being. Whether you're American or not, this is a melting pot. Whether you were born in this country or you were not born in this country, you get an opportunity to help this country be better, which hopefully will help the world be better. And that's constantly what I preach to my children. Like, if you go to the league, great. But if you go and you're successful in whatever you're successful in and people love you for the human being that you are, not just because of your talent, but because of your attitude, your character, your integrity, those things matter to me because I set the legacy for my family. I broke the generational curses for my family, and I set a legacy for my last name and my family. And I truly believe that anytime for a man of any sort, the greatest gifts, and I told you this, when we first met, Sam, the greatest gift that we'll ever give our children and our families is a great last name. And it's not the house that you live in, it's not the car that you drive, it's a great last name, because at the end of the day, when you're dead and gone, how will people remember you? What will they remember you for? And will how they remember you open up opportunities for other people? As a coach, as a CEO, as a president, as a teammate, when people hear your name or they see your number come up on the caller ID and they ask you for a favor, or you're asking to help somebody or get somebody help, will your last name be the bridge that people need to become better? And for the most part, up to this point in my life, that's been the case. I wasn't raised with that though. I had to build that for myself. And it took a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds to help get me to the space that I'm in now. So when people say, how do you make so much time to do everything that you do? My immediate response is, how can I not? People invested in me when they had absolutely nothing to gain in return. And I serve a God that truly has Jeremiah 29:11 written all over my life. He knew the thoughts that he had for me. He understood the thoughts of good things, and I've had a damn good life, and I'll continue to have a damn good life. And it's not that it's a life that comes without struggles. It's not a life that comes without weapons being formed, but they haven't prospered because I continue to grow and I continue to go. And, I thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to come on your podcast, One, because I know that you're a believer. I mean, it was very evident. I'm a believer right out of the gate. You didn't shove it down my throat. I just could tell by the way you walk, the way you talked about your family, the way you carry yourself. And, you know, brother to brother, both of you, even though you're a little lighter than I am, we still brothers, you
Yeah.
know, in this walk. Continue to use this platform, man, to bring as many voices to the table as possibly can that not only will speak to their journey or speak to their faith, but speak truth to power. Because that's what I think a lot of folks are scared of nowadays, is to hear the truth. I ain't running for office. Have zero desire to run for office. So if I tell somebody to F off, I ain't worried about that coming back and bite me in the butt 2 years from now. Somebody worried about, you know, well, you know, you told such and such to screw off, you know, 2 years ago. Yeah, I did, and I'll tell them again. And I'll tell you why I told them. I'm debt free, I'm stress free, I'm worry free, I'm kids free. And so, you know, if it's just me and my French bulldogs at the end of the day, I'm good. You know, as long as my kids are healthy and God is continuing to allow me to open doors for folks and do things for people that help facilitate the world in which I know we can help build, then so be it. You know, they always say if you can just reach one, you know, you've done a great job. I've reached thousands and thousands. I've put 370 something kids in college in the last 15 years. 38 of them are in the NFL playing football. You know, several of them are playing Major League Baseball. Some of them are lawyers. Some of them are doctors. Some of them are police officers. Some of them are school teachers. So, and this is since they were 12 years old. I'm 48. I'm not even halfway dead yet. So just imagine when I get on that other side of 50, when I really don't give a damn. Because, you know, the older you get, you lose all the you lose all the damns to give, you know.
So I got one more, and then Cliff, we always end every episode. We end with some Cliff notes, right? So Cliff had
Yeah.
Cliff notes. He'll have his Cliff notes and maybe a question to close us. And I usually ask, how do you win without losing it all? And it seems like you've answered that question. But so what I want to ask you, Thaddeus, is what truth does the world need to hear?
You are enough. Simple. The world will tell you what you can't do, how you can't be, what you're not capable of, what you're not qualified for. And it's a bold-faced lie. You are truly enough. And the enemy will put that doubt and that fear and that wall up so that you won't go through that wall. Like, just think about it. Like, people, the enemy doesn't go after you for what you have. You know, that's easy. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the easy part. When you go into a game plan, Sam, you play football. Who's the best running back you played against?
I played against Saquon, so I'd say Saquon.
All right, so Saquon Barkley. So prior to you getting on the field with Saquon Barkley, you didn't care how many yards he rushed for last game.
No.
You didn't care how many yards people projected him to get in the game that you played against.
No.
What you cared about is stopping him from gaining anything. That's how the enemy works. It ain't after what you did in the past. It ain't after what you got going on in the present. They want to stop your future. Hey, you ain't going to do that with me. I'm not going to allow you to do that. You ran for 300 yards against the last team. You ain't going to do that here. That's how the enemy works. So the devil says, hey, y'all think I want what you got right now, man. What you got right now it's not even a fraction of what I know God got. But if I can keep you from getting that what God got for you in the future, oh, I can kill your whole family. I can stop your grandkids. I can stop your great grandkids if I can just get you right now. Because you may be a millionaire, but your great grandkids are supposed to be multimillionaires because they're going to continue the generational wealth that you've accumulated. But if I can stop you in your tracks right here and set you back and set your family back, and you be the patriarch of that, And all of a sudden, I'll put you back in a space and your family back in a space in which now everybody's got a doubt and wonder, will we ever get back to where we were? And you're wondering from a world sense. You're not depending on God. You're depending on the fact that you just lost all this stuff. So my thing is, you are enough. There was a time in my life where I was very insignificant to a lot of people. And my life up to this point, from this point moving forward, is all about significance. Because success is for ourselves. It's very selfish. I want to be this. I want to make this amount of money. I want to do such and such. I want to graduate from high school. I want to graduate from college. I want to do this. I want to do that. Great. Anybody can be successful at anything they want to do, especially in this country. But the question is, what are you going to do when you get that success? How are you going to impact the people around you? Because I believe that the 8-year-old Thaddeus and the 80-year-old Thaddeus will never be too far apart. I'll never forget where I came from. I'll never forget how I felt when I was hungry, when I was cold, when I was homeless, when I was told what I'll be less than. So therefore, I can look at other people that are in that situation and be like, hey, man, you are enough. I love you and I believe in you, and we're going to get through this. And the 80-year-old me is sitting up there like, yeah, I've gotten all this, I've accumulated all these things, and I got all these great memories, but I'm still wanting to make sure that other people can do that. That's why I love kids and I love elderly. They both are, it's two of the most truthful demographic of people you'll ever meet in your life. If your breath stink and they're 6 years old, they're going to tell you your breath stink. If your breath stink and they're 85 years old, they're going to tell you they breath stink. As an 8-year-old or 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid, they're going to tell you the same story every day, all day. And you're going, and the 85, 90-year-old, they're going to tell you the same stories a million times. You know why? Because those were their dreams, that they see things and they experience things and they constantly want to live in those moments because those are great moments for them. And as much as you don't want to hear what your 6-year-old, 7-year-old saying all the time, over and over and over and over again, man, it's going to be a time that you're going, when they're 85, grandpa, or 85-year-old granddad or 85-year-old dad or mom, and you're going to wish you had those conversations back. You're going to wish that you can talk about the good old days. And you're going to wish that you can talk about what they want to be when they grow up. Because once they grow up, they're not talking to you about the same thing that they were talking to you when they were talking to you at 6. So you are enough. Wherever you are on the spectrum of life, you are enough. Jesus died for us all for a reason. And it wasn't because I was the best, you was the strongest, he was the fastest, she was the richest, they was the this, whatever. It's because he loved us.
Thaddeus, my last thought, and this has been incredible. I've spent the last 8 years as the director of strength and conditioning for the Indiana Hoosiers men's basketball team. And as Sam mentioned earlier, I've been coaching for almost 30 years now in the NFL, college football, college basketball. But there's one quote that I typically will leave on my grease board for the athletes to see, and it's from John Wooden, and it says, being a great person is more important than being a great athlete. And just hearing your story and the impact that you've made with the platform that you've been given is incredible to me. So it's not really a question. It's more or less a salute, a thank you, and a encouragement, man, to keep doing what you're doing, because you have certainly inspired me over the last 45 minutes or so.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
And everybody for listening, thank you all so much for checking out the Sam Acho podcast featuring Clif Marshall, aka Clip Notes, and today's special guest, Thaddeus Bullard. Make sure to check out King's Court. It'll be on NBC and on Peacock starting in July. And all this information will be in the show notes. We'll have links for you to check out, and go to samacho.com to check out all the resources. Thank you.